listen to that, for sure. I'll call this meeting to order of the McLendon-Chisholm Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It is 6:30. Please bow your heads as we do the invocation. Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to talk about the things that are important in our community. Father, give us the wisdom to make good decisions and the willingness to listen to others. In Christ's name we pray, amen. Will you please stand and join me in the pledge to the flags? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. God bless Texas. Okay, the agenda items, next item is citizen comments. Now, we can either have the citizens' comments now, if you wish, or if they pertain to a certain item on the agenda, you can speak at that time. It is up to you. Okay, so we'll just proceed then with the agenda. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes from our Tuesday, October 1st meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comments? All in favor of approving the minutes from the October 1 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Meeting minutes approved. Okay, the first item of business is item 6.1. Notice of a public hearing to be held by the McLendon-Chisholm Planning and Zoning Commission on October 15, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at McLendon-Chisholm City Hall, located at 1371 West FM Drive 50, McLendon-Chisholm, Texas 75032. Public hearing will be held to receive public comments regarding a request by how do you pronounce that? I'm sorry. Demetria, thank you. Demetria Carter for a replat for a portion of Lot 1, Kentwood Addition, McLendon-Chisholm, Rockwall County, Texas, to create a new Lot 1A. The existing property is zoned SF 2.5 single-family residential. This property is generally located adjacent to and west of FM 1139, across FM 1139 from Springway, 1582 FM 1139, and then Rockwall CAD property ID number 18429. Public hearing is now open. Does anybody wish to address the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding item 6.1? I do have also responses that were sent in that I will read into the public record. If you wish to speak instead of me reading it in, just let me know, but the microphone is open to anybody that wishes to make a comment on 6.1. It has been our accepted action to try and limit our presentations to 3 minutes if you can, so other people can speak as well. Thank you.
My name is McLendon-Chisholm.
You got to put button on there. You have to put it on so we can record it. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll try not to talk as loud. My name is Calvin Langston. I live at 951 Kentwood Drive here in Rockwall, of course, McLendon-Chisholm. I'm the president of the Kentwood HOA, and I'm just here to say that the Kentwood HOA, majority of the homeowners do not approve of the replat request of Lot 1 to 1A by Mrs. Carter. The covenants, conditions, restrictions of Kentwood, herefrom referenced as covenant, has been in place since Mr. McKinney developed our addition in 1984, and they're there to protect the value and desirability of our neighborhood. The Kentwood subdivision was initially platted for 20 lots and homes. Who would have thought 40 years ago you'd have to put in no extra, extra, extra? As described in Section 2 of the covenant, as you guys know, only one family resident may be erected on one lot. The proposed replat seems to be another attempt by Mrs. Carter to amend or change our covenants, exposing Kentwood residents to a less desirable neighborhood. This is not the first time this has come up. It's come up probably 2 or 3 times over the last several years. Also, I have to bring this to everyone's attention, and I hope you don't really, but any changes to the topography and flow of the lake spillway given the replat of Lot 1 could result in significant impacts to our Kentwood residents, including flooding and potential bodily harm. Proposed Lot 1A is below the U.S. Soil and Water Conservation Service Site Number 7 reservoir, a floodwater retarding structure, and located in the emergency spillway. So I don't have to remind you what happened between us here in Kentwood, a near catastrophic dam failure on the conservation lake because of building that went on below the dam. So in closing, I'll just reiterate that the homeowners of Kentwood, with the exception of the Carters, do not approve of the replat request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Gary Nickel, 612 Kentwood. My wife and I were latecomers to the Kentwood edition. We've only been here 15 years, but you'll find that most of the residents in the neighborhood are protective and proud of the neighborhood, and we've all assumed from the time that we first saw it that it was built out and that was all that would ever be constructed there. So this recent activity has been a bit disappointing, and it is apparent from past actions by this applicant that they do intend to sell the lot and recoup some of the purchase price that they made for their original property. I have a picture that was printed a couple of years ago when they attempted to sell 10 acres of that lot for $500,000. That never went anywhere, but now the application has been reduced to only 4 acres for reasons that I'm not sure about, but it probably is just to make it more compact and keep it away from the rest of the neighborhood. As was noted by Calvin, the soil conservation people do not have a legal prohibition against building there, but they are unanimous in their caution about doing so because it is in the floodplain. And the only safe way to build a house there would be to build it up even with the top of the dam, which I believe is somewhere in the range of 10 to 20. The property is somewhere between 10 and 20 feet below the top of the dam. Besides being construction issues and at risk of damaging the dam, there's an awful lot of work being involved in building at that point. And what we're concerned about is that although this is an emotional issue, I realize that you only can consider what's legal and what's not. And so my concern from that perspective is that if we allow this to pass and it becomes a lot for sale and they advertise it, whether or not they advertise as a buildable lot, it would be up to the potential buyer to do his homework and determine whether it is in fact buildable and at what expense. That's my concern because most people who look at lots for sale don't ever think about that issue, and I don't know who's liable. If this were to pass, who would be responsible or who would be liable in the event that something happened. So Chisholm Crossing Dam was mentioned. We already know that it's possible that dams can be damaged, and we don't know the outcome yet of how that's going to turn out. We also were told a couple of years ago when this first came up that there was a requirement that 100% of the adjacent property owners approve such an application, but that turns out not to be the case anymore, and I don't know why that's the case. Perhaps Mr. Koch or Mr. Woodbury could explain that at some point. But we do request that you disapprove this for the reasons stated, and that although it's an emotional issue, we're concerned that there may be some legal aspect to it as well. Thank you.
There is not a home on Lot 1A at the present time, is there?
There is no lot 1A.
Okay. All right. And,
Lot 1 is the lake.
okay, okay.
Right here.
It is also an emergency spillway of the dam, and all the property there has easement, full small conservation. Come and go, and also. Yes. James D. Gooch, Doug Gooch, Lot 1, Kenwood Estate. I've been there for about 8 years. The properties, I have 2.5 acres originally purchased, and then I purchased the 5 acres next to my property, which abuts this property that's of concern. And, Mr. Coker? Yeah. Again, a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, we had this issue, and we came before we could find out what we could do to prevent this being sold. And we were told then that we had to have 100% signatures of all the property owners in our division. And I guess that's not the case anymore, and I don't know why. So. Okay, all right. I too am against this proposal because there's a danger there of that dam, I think, in my opinion, that there's already a slide on the dam. And I talked to a gentleman from the Soil Conservation, and he indicated at some point in time in the future it had to be repaired, which is fine. They have the access to the dam from my property, and I assume from the other property as well. But there's always an inherent danger building a property underneath the dam, which really doesn't make sense to me, but that's my opinion. So, thank you.
Could I have Reese speak just one minute?
No problem.
Again, Calvin Langston, 951 Kentwood. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that I've been in Kentwood for, actually it'll be 30 years in a couple weeks, and I bought my house from K.O. McKinney. He was the initial developer of Kentwood Estates, and I remember standing on the back, and it goes to what Gary said. It's kind of an emotional thing for us. But I remember him telling me as I stood on his patio thinking about buying the house, and he said, look out back. The one thing you'll never, ever have to worry about is seeing another house behind your house. And that's what sold me. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to address the commission concerning this lot? All right. I do have some responses that came in the mail. It is our policy and procedure to mail letters to homeowners that are in that, adjacent to that property. The first homeowner is Daniel Middleton, and it says, I'm in favor of the request. It says this has no effect on Kentwood Addition. Ingress and egress will be on FM 1139. I don't see what the problem is. Then the next one is from 1771 FM 1139. Okay. Okay, all right. The next one is, I'm opposed to the request by Mr. and Mrs. Gooch, James and Don Allen. It says we are opposed to the replat of Lot 1. Kentwood Edition. In proposing this request is to ultimately build on this property. The next one I have is I'm opposed to the request by Sharon Cleverly. Okay, sorry. Thank you. The next one I have is I'm opposed to the request. This replat goes against our Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. The next one I have is I'm opposed to the request by Calvin Langston. We do not support the replat of any properties in Kentwood Edition. The next one is I am opposed to the request by Marcus Trevino. I feel it would be dangerous to put the dam at risk by allowing this change. The next one is I am opposed to this request. Kentwood is built out. Lots can't meet district's policies. And the last one I have is also opposed to the request, and it's from Brian Turnbull. With all the homes in Kentwood subdivision located on multiple acres, there is a potential that the replat of this property could lead to the request to replat other properties. There is a potential for flooding for all land around the pond. Lived in our home since 2016 and been experienced flooding many times. So there was 7 opposed and 1 in favor. Yes, sir.
My name is Frank Junta. I'm also a resident of Kentwood Estates. My name is not mentioned, but I did email my opposition to that. And without going into all of the details, I adopt all of what has been said by the prior residents and speakers here, and I can't reiterate how important this issue is to our community and how we feel about it as a community. And any disturbing of that we feel would be detrimental to the overall morale, and it will maintain our property values and what makes our community so valuable and attractive to other buyers is that we have this aura about us, and we want to keep that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else concerning 6.1, the Kentwood? Yes. Okay, yes, we are in the public hearing concerning the replat of Lot 1 and 1A, or Lot 1. Only if you want to address address the commission. Please state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Ellis Carter, and the address is 18 with my wife, Demetria, is here with me, and my grandson, Marcel. The property is 1804 Kentwood Circle. We purchased our home, 1804 Kentwood Circle, on May the 9th, 2019. Our buyer's contract read that we would require lots 1 and 3 of Kentwood Edition as evidence of the survey provided by the seller's real estate agent and verified by Trinity Title Company. It was also referred on the MLS as 18.75 acres. We were also told that 5 acres, part of Lot 1, could be subdivided into a separate plat. We have been in pursuit of the plat since January the 7th, 2020. We were forced to file a lawsuit against the seller, the Underwoods, Trinity Title Company, who misrepresented the total acreage, the real estate agent who misrepresented that lot 1A could be developed into 2 plats. We settled that lawsuit with the defendant acknowledging their misconduct. Since that time, we have been trying to replat 1A to carve off approximately 5 acres. We have presented new surveys from Burns Surveys according to the rules and regulations of the city of McLendon, and to no avail. We are respectfully asking the city to grant permission to replat. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments concerning this agenda item? Mr. Coker, would you? Would you please?
Do you want me to go up there, or do you want me to talk from here?
There is fine.
Okay. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this re-subdivision has been going on for a long time. I thought it was actually 2021, but my recollection, it goes back to 2020. I actually think I had hair back then. So it's gone on for a long time. Before I start talking about how we got here, let me say that your staff has reviewed this application, and it conforms with both our local regulations and state law. And the staff recommendation is for approval. Let me remind the commission that this is a ministerial act, not a legislative act. So the fact that people are not happy about it should not make any difference in your consideration. This application complies with the law. Staff's recommendation is approval. You have three choices. You can recommend approval and send it on to the council. You can recommend approval with conditions. If you have conditions, they have to be something that you want them to comply with that's in our subdivision regulations or in state law. Or the third option is to disapprove it. And a disapproval requires that you be specific about the reason that you're disapproving it. For instance, a citation from the subdivision regulations, or a citation from the state law. Or it could even be a citation from the deed restrictions, which I made a copy of for all of you all, about this property. If that were the case, then if you were to recommend disapproval, that would go on, actually would stop here, and the applicant has an unlimited amount of time to resolve the issue. Let's say that it was not big enough. Let's say that because it's a SF 2.5 zoning district, that the property was only 2.49 acres. That would be enough to say that we disapprove it. All they'd have to do is go find another foot out there and bring it back to you. They have unlimited time to solve the problem. So there's those three options: approval, approval with conditions, or disapproval. In either of those last two, you've got to be specific about what the condition is or what the conditions are that they failed to satisfy out of the ordinances or out of state law. Everybody understand where I'm at? Okay. So, this application conforms with state law. Your staff, and just for the audience, I've worked here for 12 years, but I have never been an employee. I've always been a contractor. Asa is the city planner. He and I work together. They call me the planning director, but I only get to direct Asa, so it's not all that. At any rate, that said, we have really evaluated this and worked hard to come up with a solution. And one of the questions that was asked is, 2 years ago, I asked the council to authorize 50 hours for me to solve the problem, because historically, and in our ordinance, if you buy property, it has to be platted. And I've copied the ordinance for your consideration, but it says before you can sell property, like all those 11 lots that got parts of the lake, you have to replat. But none of y'all did that. None. The Carters didn't do it. None of the rest of you, Mr. Gunter didn't do it. None of you did it. And so, in order for me to try and solve that problem, I wanted to have the council authorize an opportunity for me to go out and get all the signatures to replat all the properties that had been, not 1A, all the properties that had already been sold. City attorney said, we can't do that. We can't spend city money solving a private issue. And so I said, okay, Mr. Hollow, how do I solve it? Time passed. And I asked Mr. Hollow, how do I solve this? Because The Carters have been out there trying to get this thing done for years now, and the community hasn't really had the opportunity to talk to you all about it. And Hollis said, if you read the state law the way it's written today, and I'm looking at the way it's written today, it says that a property owner may subdivide their property as long as we give notice to property owners within 200 feet of the property to be subdivided. Well, that's all of the property around Lot 1, because Lot 1 is the lake and all the land around it, 35 and a half acres. So I said, okay, well, that'll work out. I can get this through the process. I think I can build an application, but the first time I ran it through, earlier this year, was it earlier this year when I tried this, and the commission said no, because I had said, I need you to approval with the following condition, that all the property owners around here sign the application. Well, the commission said, well, we're not accepting it. It's an incomplete application. And so it never got to approval, disapproval, because it was an incomplete application. And justifiably so, because all the other owners hadn't signed. But Mr. Hollis said, here's how you solve that problem. Just deal with the part that the Carters own, that 11 or 12 or however many acres it is. And they've done that. So they filed a new application, and I arm wrestled with their surveyor to get an application, a plat that y'all could consider. I talked to Owen Cantrell, who is the guy who kind of manages this lake out here, Lake 7, of the Conservation District, and he said that he doesn't have a position on platting, but when it comes to construction, they have to get an encroachment, they have to get permission to encroach in there. Now that said, has nothing to do with platting. This plat complies with all of the regulations at our level and at the state level. Now, I also put into that supplementary information that I sent to you all yesterday, I think, there's a position in state law that says if the property has been zoned either permanently or temporarily in the previous 5 years for 1 or 2 family dwellings, well, this property's been zoned SF 2.5 since 1984. That's when the plat was final. So it has to have 2.5 acres, but the state law says if that's the case, then you got to have a public hearing. We did the application, we put the notice in the newspaper, we sent out the notices, you got the responses that are in favor and that are not in favor. And if you read down a little bit further in there, it says if the applicant is requesting a variance, and they're not requesting any variances, because this is platting, if they requested a variance, then it requires a 3/4 vote of the city council to approve an application. It's a little different deal, but they're not asking for a variance. There are issues that will be taken into consideration, but not by the commission. The commission is really, your articulation is, does it comply with the law? And it does. And so, even though the community is unhappy about it, their CCNs, the HOA documents, I sent you copies of both the original one and the amended one. Neither one of those say that you can't have an extra lot. None of them. I mean, and when you think about the Gooches, whose house was built in 1987 on Lot 1, that's how I wondered how they were able to get permission, even though they only owned at that time, I think, 2.5 acres, or maybe the predecessor, how they did that. And it was because they platted it as part of Lot 1. As part of Lot 1. So at the end of the day, the local ordinance was not complied with, because the local ordinance says that before you sell something, you have to replat. Nobody replatted. I tried to solve that problem. Got kind of said, no, we're not going to spend the money to do that. But we will, as applicants come in, we'll go ahead and start fixing this at their expense, not at the city's expense. So that's the first thing. State law has changed a couple of times, but the rules that are in effect today and that were in effect at least for the last 3 or 4 years requires what we're going through now. And the state law changed, I think, Robert, you may remember about 4 years ago when they changed our ability to do other than approval with conditions or disapproval. I mean, it became a straight law and you had to act on it within 30 days of a complete application. Well, all that said brought me to this complies with the state law, and I got the surveyor to give me what you needed to make a conscientious decision that complies with the law. Then the conservation lake, they have a blanket easement over the entire 35 acres to provide access, and I sent you all copies of their policies and their requirements. So let's assume for the moment that you recommend approval, which is my recommendation and it's ACE's recommendation, and that goes on to council for approval. And the council approves it, and it gets recorded of record. And it is now a new Lot 1A, which is 4.9 acres. A prospective purchaser or somebody who wants to build here has got to go through 3 specific issues. The first one is they have to file an application for an encroachment into the easement with the Conservation District. And I gave you all the information in the back. Conservation District, Owen Cantrell told me, as long as they're not doing any damage to the dam, they're probably going to say yes. But that application hasn't been done, so that's the first step. Second thing is that they being the property owner, has to hire a hydraulic engineer to determine where the real flood level is. You may remember in the supplemental information that I sent to you, I talked about Zone X and Zone A, which are both floodplain issues. Zone A is the 100-year floodplain. Zone X is out of the 100-year floodplain. On that plat, it designates it as approximate. So before they could ever get a building permit, they'd have to determine exactly where that is. And then, going on back to our city code, there is a section in Chapter 3 that has specific information about floodplains and stormwater. They'd have to comply with that. And lastly, they'd have to get a building permit. And that requires site plan approval and all kinds of things that are going to go on after y'all have touched it. So where we are is they've complied with the state law and with our local ordinance. They have not asked for a variance. And your job is to, well, I really think your job is to recommend approval to the city council. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Please tell us who the city staff is that works on these documents and everything. What does the staff consist of?
Well, the staff that prepares the reports that come to the commission includes,
No. This is recommended by the city staff. Who is the city staff that recommended this?
that is myself and Asa Woodbury.
No attorney has said anything about this. There has been no opinion by any county engineer. What Mr. Poker is saying, all these issues, the threatening comments about the facts, you must know the facts. Something else about the here. But I submit to this power of life. If something this important should have a letter from the city attorney, should have a letter from the city engineer, opinion, then this body has in fact to deal with, decide the presentation, the beautiful presentation.
I expected more questions from Mr. Packer.
So I've got one question here that I want to ask. So you said that I appreciate the supplemental information. Usually I review this over the weekend. It coming in yesterday and last night didn't really help. You said one possible reason might be a deed citation. Excuse me, could you come closer to the mic, please? So you said one that was that a possible deed citation was one possibility for denial.
Deed restriction.
Deed restriction, rather. You said in the list of citations, so it's reason I'm rolling it back in my mind. So I have not read through their covenants and restrictions. Does the current deed restrictions tie them and bind them to the Kentwood covenants?
Yes.
And we have fully reviewed said covenants. There were several in the audience that said that this action violated those covenants. And you're saying,
No, it doesn't.
okay.
And actually, I got copies from the county, I got copies from Mrs. Carter, and I got copies from Gary of the deed restrictions and the amendments, and I read it meticulously because, and it's not a subject for a disapproval, it is a subject for requiring a three-quarter vote if you're trying to modify a portion of the covenants or the deed restrictions. This application's not doing that.
Okay, thank you.
I know that you want to ask a question.
Just for clarification, so it's not doing that in the spirit of what it says or in the letter of what it says. I'm wondering if there's a gray area because we clearly have constituents here who are concerned about it, and then we're here, and we haven't, this thing's got a lot of hair on it, clearly, and we haven't had weeks to go over it or anything like that. That's not anybody here's problem, but for some of us, this is our first rodeo at this specific item, and it is very hairy and difficult. So back to my original question, do you feel like it does, do you feel like that there are deed restrictions, that this doesn't infringe on the spirit of that and or the letter of that?
This application does not do either of those two things. It does not infringe on them or the spirit of them. I think that the deed restrictions, the original ones, were pretty sketchy. The supplemental ones were a whole lot more detailed, and you've got a copy of them. And this application doesn't do anything that would do anything that's not approved by those deed restrictions. Because the deed, I even made a comment in my supplemental report to y'all that the deed restrictions don't say anything about additional lots. Then, I mean, they just don't deal with it. They do talk about house size and setbacks and all kinds of things that the city enforces through the zoning regulations and that the citizens can enforce through their civil actions. But deed restrictions are not enforced by the city. Those are property owner to property owner issues. And there's nothing in that set of deed restrictions, either the old ones or the new ones. They're all old, but the ones that were amended in September of 1984, that would lead me to believe that there's any potential violation of those rules. And so going back to, I think the way you phrased the question was the intent or the letter. And I think in this case, your obligation is to make a determination based on the law, on the letter of the law, not on what you think it should be. Does that make sense?
It does. My concern with infringing on the spirit of what, and I know it's a community issue and not an issue that we need to resolve, but are we going in a direction that we don't need to go? Because when I look at the information that we received in the last 24 hours, and I look at the overall lot design, whoever designed that lot clearly incorporated that low-lying area into that lot originally.
That's true.
And that clarification is not picking a side. It's just what I'm looking at. It was clearly designed that way. And so, hence my question, are we approaching this with clarity on what's the spirit of the rulings that we're moving forth on, or are we making sure that we're looking at it through a clear lens?
The staff is looking at it through a clear lens as it relates to the law. I mean, I know these people. I understand where they are. I've known Gary since I started working here. And I understand their position. And I think I told him and his, one of his fellow people at a meeting here at City Hall a couple of weeks ago. I understand their position, but the law says this. And there's no room for me to make a decision that's not conforming to this inside the four corners of the law. And so that's where your staff is. We're operating, we've made a recommendation that's clear for your consideration. And I've tried my best to underwrite it with all the supporting information that I get from state law, city ordinances, and actually, to go back to Mr. Packer's comment, I have talked to Mr. Holla at length about this case.
Documentation of any kind? Any documentation of any kind? Anything that's been said here today besides what you said and said, trust me.
No.
There is no documentation whatsoever on these requests for floodplain, the pond overflowing, no opinion from those people about somebody building there. Trust me. In God we trust, all of us pay cash.
Mr. Coker, I believe that our city attorney has indicated to this commission that one of the conditions to disapprove an application is the input that we receive from the community that will be affected or that is around this particular application. The other thing that I'm wanting to know is that there are certain things in our comprehensive plan that we as a commission are asked to do. And one of those things is to make sure that what we approve is secure safety from fire, panic, or other dangers. Okay? Living across the way in Chisholm Crossing this past summer, we had some issues with the conservation dam. Okay? There were certain homes that were alerted to be prepared to evacuate because our dam shifted.
It started sliding down.
Exactly. And there was a house that infringed property. That property goes all the way to the water. So that building of that house, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a hydrologist, I'm a resident, I know what I saw at the dam. And this has been alluded to in some of the comments from the residents, that there is an unknown danger with the encroachment if somebody were to build a house there. And I'm struggling between, or to comply with the comprehensive plan, and based on what the attorney said, that the comments are relevant to a decision that this commission can make to reject or accept the plan.
So 2 questions, Mr. Coker. Have we as a commission ever asked you to provide evidence of communications with city attorneys or other individuals that you've done in doing your professional job?
No, sir.
Should we see this one as any different?
Nobody's asked me to do that.
Thank you. The problem in Chisholm Crossing that was mentioned, to your knowledge, was that done through an encroachment or through building that caused the potential dam problem?
I do not know.
Okay. You said it was sliding, but I mean, there's not any new building there in quite some time. I don't think.
No, not since the first phase of Chisholm Crossing.
Right. So probably not something recent that's been built that's caused that issue.
No. let me go back to the chairman's comment. I think you will find, when I start out a plat review or a plat discussion like we're talking about here, where the legislature down in Austin has decided that you don't get to make legislative decisions on plats, okay? And a legislative decision can take into account concerns from the neighbors, maybe some forward-thinking concerns about the health, safety, and welfare of future property owners. But in this case, because the state law says you have 3 choices. You can approve it with conditions, or disapprove it, and the only way you can disapprove it is if it fails to comply with the law. This doesn't. And so I'm trying to get where you're going, Robert, because if it was zoning, that you wouldn't have any problem with saying, no, we don't like it. But they're not asking for zoning. It's already zoned. Actually, it conforms with the comprehensive plan as far as the request, because they're not changing the zoning. They're just making another lot out of a really big lot, a 35-acre lot. They're making now a 4.9-acre lot and a 30.1-acre lot. That's what the deal is. So that, taking into account the public, in this particular case, the only time that would have bearing on your decision is if the Carters were asking for a variance to the rules, and they're not. They are complying with the law. Did I get where you wanted to go, Robert?
You need to get up or am I watching? So you're saying it's Texas law to replat if the land has been sold. Did I hear you correct?
No, sir.
That's what you said.
No,
If the
I said
land
it-
has been sold,
No, I said this, our ordinance requires that you replat prior to selling.
okay, because the Texas Government Code Section 212.004 provides that a plat is not required for a subdivision of land into parts greater than 5 acres. It goes back to what you'd said, other lots have been sold but not replatted. Not required, by law.
Wait, none of those are 5 acres or more. And this one's not. This is only 4.9.
I'm just referencing the other lots around the lake. Lot 1, Cale McKinney, when he built the subdivision, all that was basically, all the land around the lake was basically and is in the floodplain. So you can look at the maps, you can look at the plats, it's all in the floodplain. That's why he didn't divide it into separate lots at the time. Now, it was 40 years ago, and times have changed, but I'm reading where if you sell a lot, you don't have to replat it.
Okay, well, let me,
But my second question is, what is this about a supplement in the last 24 hours? Do it? Kentwood residents, any of you guys know about that? Any supplement? What is that?
the other chairman of the commission asked me to put together a supplemental piece of information that covered some of the issues that they needed to look at, and I did that over the weekend, and I got it from me yesterday.
And should we have not got the chance to look at that information? I'm sorry?
Everything that he provided was of public record. The deed restrictions that were on file with the county.
Yeah, I just didn't, I checked the website before I came
No.
up here, I didn't see any
I
supplements.
don't like anyone from the public going after.
Oh, no, I'm not, I don't mean to go after
So
him, I'm just,
everything that he provided, would you agree is public record?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you have the opportunity to go and search for that yourself, just like I would have.
yeah.
They were just trying to make our job a little bit easier in
Okay.
dispelling some of the things that are going on.
Well, I'm
And they were
kind of
talking-
like, Gal, sorry. I'm kind of like him, it's, one of my first rodeos with the Planning and Zoning Commission, other than with the Carters, but I wasn't trying to be rude or disrespectful in any way.
And no harm, no foul, but before you leave the podium there,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to read to you out of our code, section 10.02.004, subsection D. No subdivision plat shall be filed or recorded, and no lot in a subdivision inside or within 1/2 mile of the corporate limits of the city shall be improved or sold until a plat thereof shall have been first approved by the city council. And that's our law.
Okay.
And that's what I.
That's what
referred to.
you were referencing
Yes, sir.
when you said law? Okay. I'll stand
We
corrected.
good? We good?
Yes, sir.
All right. Other questions?
Are there any other questions or comments during this public hearing?
You know, maybe I'm a little bit naive, but aren't we supposed to be doing things which are for the betterment of the city, and the city is really the citizens? What is our legal ramifications if we say no? Can we be sued?
You're asking a question that I can't answer. But if you were to say no, well, let's not use that word. Let's say if you were to disapprove, which is what the state law says, if you were to disapprove it, then you would need to say what it was that they failed to comply with. And basically a chapter and verse. Which section of the code, which section of the state law do they fail to comply with? And I can tell you that they don't fail to comply with any of it.
So even if everybody in the whole city said, that's a terrible thing, we still have to approve it?
Yes, sir.
I think there's something wrong with the law.
And let me say this about the law. And I've been doing this a long time. Not so, just about the right amount of time. But I have always told my clients that if you don't like the law, change it. If you don't like the law, change it, because they're doing business down in Austin every other year. Every other year. And they're doing business here every month. So if you don't like the law, change the law. But in this case, the law says you only have 3 choices. You can approve it, and that's our recommendation. And we're not asking, there's no civil engineering, there's no work to be done. This is just basically a paper exercise to allow 1 to become 1 and 1A. That's the only thing that we're doing here. Your guidance from the state is you have 30 days to make a decision. We've burned that off a long time ago because they had an incomplete application, but they brought back a complete application, and now, even though we've got a lot of the homeowners that are out there that are opposed to this, and I understand that, and if I lived here, I'd be working to change the law, but that's not the case. You have to make a decision. Yes, does it comply with the law? If you think it needs a little extra work to comply with the law, what is that? And if you think that it just doesn't comply with the law, then say disapproval, but tell me why, so I can put it in the record and make sure that the Carters go out and fix it and bring it back. And when they bring it back, they have unlimited time to fix it, and they don't have to pay another fee. They get to come right back here if that was the case. And I have to say, and Robert, you know that this is the case, I think that the Planning and Zoning Commission is a vital component in the process of taking care of the citizens. In this case, it wasn't your council that did this. It was the state. The state, and frankly, there were developers who were absolutely pushing this, because up until the state said that we had the 3 choices, it was ministerial, we did make legislative decisions. When I say we, you all would take into account, well, have them prove that they can get it out of the floodplain before you approve the plat. Well, that ship sailed 4 years ago. And so, Tom, you're right. Your job is to help protect the citizens and do the right thing for the city. But in this case, our hands are tied. Our hands are tied. I will be here as long as you want. Yeah.
So I guess what I would proffer back to the commission is, not every choice we get to make is the one that makes everybody happy. But we have other people that are also citizens of our city, and they have worked pretty diligently within the law to make this work. We may not like it, we may not want to have to make the decision we want, but I don't know how, with anything that Mr. Coker has provided, that we can say no. You know, at best, maybe a recommendation with a condition, but I don't think that that possibility exists, because nothing here in this application so far, because they have been working with the city to finalize this application. Not that I'm their advocate, but they've dotted all their I's and they've crossed their T's. And they still have a long road ahead of them, because, as Mr. Coker pointed out, this is a paper exercise. This now is drawn on a new map with a new square. All the building permits that are going to be required, they're still going to have to obtain, or whoever they sell it to is going to have to obtain. This is not the end of the story. This is only the beginning of it. And they have the right to do this with their own land. I mean, this is Texas. If anybody could tell me what I want to do with my land and tell me I couldn't do it and I'm within the letter of the law, how would you feel? You know? I would not take it. It's one of the reasons I live here, you know? And everybody should be afforded that same right. You know, it's not going to be one that we're going to go home knowing that we made everybody happy. But our job is not to make everybody happy. Our job is to do things by the letter of the law. That, right now, is not what a lot of the constituents here want to hear. But we've got to do the right thing by everybody.
Let me add one thing to that. So I had a couple of questions. So it's my understanding you guys sued when you bought the property. You thought you were going to be able to subdivide it at that time, correct? And you guys been trying to get it platted since then. So if we approve this and they replat it, that makes y'all could sell it, right? And then the next people who buy it may not be able to build on it.
That's true.
So we're just passing the buck to somebody else. And you guys, you said y'all settled out, right? So I assume y'all got money back out of the deal? Not really.
Mr. Chair, I'd like for us not to go down that, because that has nothing to do with the case that you're looking at, sir.
Okay, but if we're going to approve something that's platted and it can never be built on, then we're basically giving permission to sell it to somebody else.
Well, they're complying with the law.
Right, but it still puts the onus back onto the new buyer to meet the restrictions that come with both the conservation district and with the building codes. And if they turn around and sell it and that person believes that they were wronged and that, oh crap, I didn't know all this other stuff was problematic with the property, just like they sued somebody, guess what? Somebody else is going to sue them.
And you're doing exactly what I don't want you to do. Talk about that.
Are there any other comments concerning item 6.1 in this public hearing? Go to the podium, please, ma'am. Turn on the mic. There you go. You're on. Okay.
Live Saturday night.
Yes.
I want to let everybody know that this has been a long, aggravating pursuit. I still, to this day, don't understand why we are not allowed to do what we want to with our land, as you so eloquently spoke, because it shouldn't be that big a deal. Now, if we elect to sell the property, we will do that with full disclosure. We bought the land and we didn't get full disclosure, but we would never do that to a seller. We will let them know what their journey is going to be like, and it shouldn't be that hard, just like ours shouldn't have been, and hopefully they won't. But if they do, they will have their eyes open. They will know.
Yeah. Are there any other comments? Yes, sir.
I don't think we were indicating that any of us were under that potential. And that, the problem I have, Mr. Packer, with your statement is that in no other case have we ever asked the city representatives to bring along with them the city attorney. And this case should be no different. Every citizen that comes before us should be treated equally. And if we had that as a manner of process, then yes, we could come to him and say, he's normally here, why is he not here tonight? But we don't. And in all the proceedings that I've been a part of over the last year and a half, we've never done that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
in response to Mr. Packer's position on this, irrespective of what you decide here, it's going to the council on the 22nd, which is next week, and the city attorney is there, and this packet that I prepared along with the staff report that Asa prepared is going to the council, and the city attorney will be here, sitting right here, to answer any questions that the council has about your recommendation.
Anything else? Then I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:32. Okay. Moving on to agenda item 6.2, consideration and action on the request. I'm sorry? We're on 6.2. I thought they wanted to speak during 6.3. Do you wish to speak during 6.3, right? Okay, all right. 6.2, consideration and action on the request of Demetria Carter for the approval of a replat of Lot 1 of the Kentwood addition to create Lot 1A.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and second to approve the application of a replat of Lot 1 of the Kentwood addition to create Lot 1A. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. It has been approved. Okay. Going on to item 6.3, we have consideration and action regarding approval of a preliminary plat for the development of 14 single-family residential lots on approximately 24.56 acres of land located at the southeast end of Savannah Lane. We have 3 citizens that have indicated their desire to speak. Tony, please.
I got it. I'll use this. This works, yeah. Tony Crawford, 104 Lavender Place, here in McLendon. My whole thing of it is that I like the concept of the plan, 1.5 acres. It complies with the comprehensive plan. I think it'll be a great addition to the area. The problem that we have in our area is that we're already getting flooding from part of Glen Acres and just east of where that will be. This road will come through. I think the road, if we don't look at how the floodplain or how the water runoff is, then we're going to do a disservice to our community in Chisholm Crossing. We've already had, there was one person in Glen Acres has already moved his driveway, and that created a big problem for a couple of residents that we have here tonight. They're going to speak. So my ask for the commission is to, if it's possible, to look at this, to maybe send it back, to have engineering done, to ensure that engineering is done, to make sure that the runoff is done. Our neighborhood in itself, I don't know who's developing this, these 14 lots, but our neighborhood in itself right now is absolutely horrible in runoff. and it was not done correctly, and we're having to deal with a lot of issues because of that. So consideration from the commission in moving forward with this. The other thing I'll leave with the commission is that in consideration for anything around the dam, I've dealt with this with the Conservation Corps, and it's an absolute nightmare because they have no funding in maintaining these dams. So leave it that with y'all. Thank you.
Okay. Darlene Putman?
Okay, Darlene Putman, 14 Dancing Waters. And to follow up with Tony, our property doesn't butt up against the property. We're behind 611 Meadow of Glen Acres. So next door to me, at 16 Dancing Waters, they're going to be directly behind this property. But the problem we have now, we've lived here for 12 years. We've had the runoff from Glen Acres. So right now, the back of this property against Meadow Lane, how it's coming down, that's, like, if you look at the new Google Maps that's updated since the tornado we had and the barn behind us was destroyed in that, you can see how saturated the water is and how it's coming down behind the houses, these 4 houses along lots 1 through 7 on the drainage plan. It flows down into that retention pond in the guy's house behind us, the 611 Meadow, and you can see the dark where it comes out into our backyard. And we've had all but one council member in our backyard with the dam that was failing at the front of our sub. They were standing in our backyard when it was pouring down rain with, I don't know, shin deep, Paul was back there, shin deep water flowing through our backyard. So we're getting all kinds of runoff from who knows what's in these people's yards and animals and everything. So my concern with this, I can't read the topography, I can't read the contour lines and figure out how it's draining, but the way it looks like lots 1 through 7, the way it's like diagonally, so it looks like it's even cross-draining against their property, like we're having a subdivision cross-drain into our backyard because our developer didn't develop our subdivision properly. So we don't have a berm or anything to stop it. So our concern is that those lots 1 through 7 aren't going to be, that they're going to be draining to the back of the lot, not the front to like Savannah Hill Lane and into wherever. But if they flow any more inch of rain in the back there, that is just going to flow into that pond and continue into our lot. It flows through our lot, our next door neighbors, up to our houses. His lot next door is almost in his house. Ours was very close. We've got other drainage from Glen Acres that's not part of this plan still coming through our our lot, but it flows across the street, down the corner. Robert's affected across the street from me. There's 10 houses all the way down until it finally gets to the creek that it should go out. I did see on the drainage plan that there was a 40-foot easement between lots 7 and 8 right there along the back of our subdivision. So yes, if that, make sure that that gets done properly, and then all of those others don't drain, that it stays into this development and not anymore into the others. I mean, we've spent 3 pallets of grass this year, 80 bags of dirt, 20 yards of dirt. I mean, we've been trying for years to try to fix this ourselves, but we can't afford any water coming from this development into ours if it's not done properly. So that's what our concern is.
Thank you. John Putman?
Yeah, John Putman, 14 Dancing Waters. So I told her I would pick up what she forgot. So a couple of things is, I know, I got pre-approval, trust me, before I, so when she talked about the 40-foot easement across the back, so one of my concerns is, right now the Glen Acres water is supposed to go through there and get to the creek. And so if a new developer comes in and blocks that off, there's only one place for that water now to go, and that's, again, through our backyard. We've gone to the city, we've talked to everybody to try to rectify this, and unfortunately, the only thing we're left is to sue that homeowner to make him stop allowing his water to come through our property, we're trying to avoid that. So we just trying to ask y'all to please be careful and try to make sure that that water is not coming our way. If it comes straight down into my neighbor's yard at 16, he's built a wall across the back of his, and so where does the water then go? Right into my yard, because he put a concrete wall across the back of his yard trying to stop it. So we're going to get impacted if anything comes off of that new subdivision. Thank you. We're at 14. So we're actually about 25 feet from the corner of that, but if the water comes out all this way, it's in our backyard. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay.
And Mr. Chair, while Ace is getting that up, or
Can I say one last thing? We're not opposed to this subdivision. It's the water.
well, have you thought about a new stock pond? That's a joke. That's a joke. So, Mr. Chair, let me talk about this one for a second.
Okay.
This is a preliminary plat, and all of the civil engineering, the real civil engineering, hasn't been done yet. So it will be done, and by our ordinance and by state law, we cannot do anything on this property that will adversely affect the people upstream from us or downstream. So this 14 lots, the engineering, when it's done, it's going to take all that stormwater and the stormwater that is picking up from Glen Acres and from you, and they'll get it down. We've got an agreement with Heritage Development that it goes into their detention, then goes on down to the creek. And so that's going to be resolved, and it will, I think it will solve your problems and a portion of the Glen Acres problem, not all of theirs, but a portion of the Glen Acres. It will. That comes south out of what used to be Singh's property? Yeah. Okay, Tony, you need to take that up with Conrad. But for today, we've reviewed this application. It's a preliminary plat. Before they come back with their final plat, they will have resolved all the engineering. We'll be working with our own engineer, Dub DeFreight, their engineer for Prairie Hills, and anybody else's engineers that has a dog in this hunt, because we don't want to continue to have problems, although I do think the stock tank is a great idea, but other than that. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Okay. 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 Staff report?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, so the applicant is requesting the approval of a preliminary plat that provides for the development of 14 single-family lots, each with a minimum lot size of 1 1/2 acres of land and a common area on approximately 25 acres of land located at the southeast end of Savannah Hill Lane. This application is administratively complete and is in conformity with the recommendations from the McLendon-Chisholm Comprehensive Plan, and so with that, the staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I have a few questions first.
Is there a second?
Questions first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said I have a motion.
That's okay. Just a couple of questions. I agree, this is a final plat, so a lot of things may not have been fully fleshed out yet. This is preliminary plat, sorry. It's late. So this is being serviced potentially by who? Water?
This is RCH.
RCH. And I guess at 1.5, are they going to have septic or what? Okay. I got you. It was just more inquisitive more than anything else. And I'll provide a motion to approve.
Okay. Motion's been made to approve. Is there a second?
I will second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the approval of the preliminary plat that provides for development of 14 single-family lots, each with a minimum lot size of 1 acre, say aye. All opposed, same sign. It has been approved. Okay. Going on to item 6.4, consideration and action regarding approval of a final plat for the development of a single water pump station located approximately 2,234 feet southwest of FM 548 and Man Road. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So the request is for the approval of a final plat that provides for the development of a single water pump station on 1.387 acres of land, generally located approximately 2,234 feet southwest of FM 548 and Man Road. This application is administratively complete and in conformity with the City of McLendon-Chisholm Code of Ordinances and Subdivision Regulations, and therefore city staff recommends approval. And I do believe we have Mr. Justin Craig from the development who would be able to answer any questions you might have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Craig, would you? Good. There you go.
Works now.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Justin Craig. I'm here representing the TELUS Group and here to answer any questions you may have on the plat we have before you.
Okay. Could you give us a physical description of the pump station, please?
A physical description?
Yeah, I mean, what is it going to consist of? Is it a walled-in, or what is it? If we go by and looked at it, what would we see?
You'll see some storage tanks. This will be a High Point Water District facility, so we're platting this so we can dedicate it to them. And they will be installing on-site storage tanks, so on-ground storage tanks. Initially, just one that they're putting in with the pump station, and then there will be mechanical equipment, potentially within, like a shed structure, that sort of thing.
Okay. Any?
Yeah, there's screening requirements there. There's ornamental fencing. That's part of it. It's required.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Thank you, sir. High Point.
Maybe we share the plans.
Yeah. Do I hear a motion on the final plat for a single water pump station?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion made and second for the approval of a final plat for the development of a single water pump station located approximately 2,234 feet southwest of FM 548 and Man Road. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the final plat. Okay. Going on to 6.5. Consideration and action regarding approval of a final plat that provides for the development of 83 single-family lots, each with a minimum lot size of 1 acre of land on 99.544 acres of land located on the north side of FM 550 across from City Hall. Staff report, please, on Ridge Point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. So the applicant is requesting the approval of the final plat that provides for the development of 83 single-family lots, each with a minimum lot size of 1 acre on 99.544 acres of land located on the north side of FM 550, right across from City Hall. The staff recommendation is approval. This application is consistent with the approved conceptual plan, and it's administratively complete and complies with the City of McLendon-Chisholm subdivision regulations and comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a plat drawings before you. Any questions or comments concerning 6.5?
If I remember correctly, when this came up preliminary, there was a question about the setbacks from the road not being deep enough, if I remember correctly.
For this project, for Ridge Point?
Yeah, for one across the road. I'm trying to remember what the problem was that we had when we had. It did? Okay, maybe I'm thinking about a different one then.
Commissioner, remember that this was zoning case before it ever came to you as a preliminary plat. And we established the setbacks with the front side and rear yard setback, the function of that plan development prior to bringing the preliminary plat. Is that better? Okay, thank you. I thought I'd punched the button, but did you hear what I said? Okay. This is that property is a planned development district that they came to the commission and the council and did the zoning district special that had the side yard, front yard, and rear yard setbacks custom tailored to that property. And that's why it may look like it doesn't absolutely conform to an RE1 or an SF 1.0 subdivision, because it's not one of those. It is kind of a composite of that. Thank you.
Do I have a motion considering the Ridge Point Estates final plat?
I make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Mr. Coker, and Ace, a couple of quick questions. I've been at this all day and I'm about out of a voice, so I'm trying to keep it quick. We were looking at tying in the road, getting final clearance to tie the roads into the subdivision behind that. Did that ever get resolved? We got a stamp on that then?
It has been resolved, and they've put it in writing to the staff. It's in the record.
Okay. Other than our quick preview on this right here, is there any significant changes on the final plat that y'all know of?
Not to my, and I reviewed this one pretty closely because it's right across from City Hall.
Okay. I didn't see any changes.
It looks, if you hold them up to the light, they look the same.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
All right, a motion has been made and second to approve the final plat that provides for the development of 83 single-family lots within a minimum lot size of 1 acre of land on 99.544 acres of land located on the north side of FM 550 across from City Hall. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried, final plat approved. Going on to 6.6. Consideration and action on the request from Brian Berry to approve a replat of the existing 3 lots for the development of a shopping center at SH or State Highway 205 and 550 Edition, Block 1, includes lots 2R, 3R-1, and 3-R2 for a total of 3.85 acres. The villages of Chisholm. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The applicant is requesting the approval of a replat of the existing 3 lots for the development of a shopping center. The State Highway 205/550 Edition Block 1 includes Lot 2-R, 3R-1, and 3-R2 for a total of 3.85 acres. This application is in conformity with the City of McLendon-Chisholm Code of Ordinances, and therefore the staff recommends approval.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And then obviously we have Mr. Brian Berry, who's in the audience, who is happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay. Yeah. Just in case. There you go.
We good?
You're good.
Brian Berry, 4210 Ridge Road, Suite 201, Heath, Texas. I don't have anything to offer, but here, happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Does the commission have any questions that are developed? Okay. I will consider a motion then on the Villages of Chisholm plat application.
Motion to approve.
Motion's been made to approve the application to replat the existing 3 lots. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Motion's been made and second to approve the request to replat of the existing 3 lots for the development of a shopping center, SH at SH 205 and 550 addition, Block 1, includes Lot 2-R, 3R-1, and 3-R2 for a total of 3.85 acres. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Replat approved.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Okay. Any reports or updates from the commissioners? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Second. All in favor say aye. Motion adjourned, meeting adjourned, 7:58. Okay.
I appreciate you clarifying to them that we weren't trying to pick on Mr. Coker. We were just making sure we had the facts straight. They apparently interpreted that we were picking on her.
It wasn't necessarily you guys. Just want to make sure that.
No, I appreciate it.